Hey, what's going on, guys? Princeton Clark here, and you're tuned into another episode of Mastery 360 on the Evolve Mastery podcast. And I'm super excited to have you guys here today as I sit down with another amazing individual who I am happy to call my brother, my friend, and also client who has really evolved his life and really taken his life to the next level. And he's also a #1 bestseller of the book Monsters in My House. And guys, listen, when I say I bring people onto this show who really bring something special to the show, I want you guys to really know that, look, I bring the most valuable people who I've connected with, who have walked through the path of self-mastery, and now they bring that mastery to you. But Walt has an amazing story. He's an amazing father, an amazing husband, an inspirational speaker, leader, teacher, in all sorts of spaces. But listen, I'm going to dive right into this podcast. And as we do this, I want you guys to get ready, grab that drink, sit back, get comfortable if you're in traffic, and take this ride with me as we take this beautiful journey of self-mastery that Walt has taken. And guys, just show some love for my beautiful friend as we dive into this next segment of Mastery 360. All right, what's going on, guys? As I said in the intro, I have an amazing guest today, amazing world changer, my brother, my friend, Mr. Walter McKinley. And I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today, man. You've gone #1 bestseller with your new book, Monsters in My House. And it's just, man, your book launch was phenomenal. It was great to be there, man. And just to see the warmth, the love, the support that you've been getting through this process. You've impacted so many lives already. And so I'm honored to have you on the podcast to be able to share your story and your journey with us, your journey of self-mastery that's brought you to this point to now being an impactful leader, an internationally best-selling author. And, you know, I want to share you with my audience now. So for everybody out there in podcast land, sit down, get comfortable, grab a drink, because this is going to be a fun conversation. You know, it's also going to be, it may for some people be a triggering conversation, but it's all geared to drive you from the trials to the triumph, from the trauma to the triumph, from your struggle to your success. And so let's go ahead and dive right into it. Walt, welcome today, man. Great to have you here.
Man, Princeton, thanks for having me on, brother. I appreciate you. You know, we built this friendship. You've been my mentor for the last, I don't even know, but close to 8 months now. But we were introduced to each other 10 months ago. And to think from initial conversations we had to now being a #1 best-selling author, sharing stages coming up in June at the EYA event, now being on the Evolve Mastery podcast. I couldn't be more excited to be part of it. And I'm just pumped up.
I'm excited too, man. You know, when we look back and, you know, a lot of the times I always say, you know, Mastery 360 is a podcast where I get to bring different people from different walks of life who've had to grow through different things in order to truly master their power, potential, and their purpose. And now they're showing up in the world and creating impact. And I always say, you know, even though people see where you are now, you haven't always been there. And so for those who haven't read your book yet, you know, guys, Monsters in My House is on Amazon right now. So if you want to go check it out, it's by Walt McKinley. The link and everything will be in the bio of this podcast interview. So make sure you go get that information, tap on that link, visit his website. I'm gonna have all the information attached here. But if for those of you who haven't read the book yet, because I know we got some faithful listeners and friends who are tuning into this interview, I want you guys to just really understand what it means to truly become triumphant in your life. You know, we face things, we grow through challenges, but I want to really encourage you guys. This is probably one of the best books I've ever seen written when it comes to dealing with moving from trauma to triumph and really healing. And as you guys listen to Walt today, you're going to get a lot. You're going to get a lot from him. And I want you to really open your heart to receive the wisdom that this man is going to share, because believe me when I say he's going places. Mark my words. Remember this interview. I said it first. No, actually, he said it first. I'm just along for the ride now. But Walt, tell us, again, we know you didn't start here, but tell us, where did your journey begin?
Yeah. So my journey's been one that I can go on Oprah and talk about, is what I've said since I was younger. And it's been really wild. I moved 14 times in the first 16 years of my life that I can recall and remember, being abused sadistically and torturously by every adult I came into contact with. So my own father, my stepmother, my stepfather, foster parents, being neglected, kick, slap, punch, hit, all of those abusive things. But some of these abusers really took it to another level, being locked in basements, being chained to beds, being locked in closets, and even having things like Halloween masks thrown down into basements with me to make it more scary at 7 and 8 years old. And so, I think about this whole journey that I've been on, and I do talk about the trauma. And to your point in the book, I write it in a way that brings the reader in and really makes them feel, smell, see the things that I was seeing at each of these points in my life, because the triumph becomes even greater after that. And the reason I wrote this book is to show people their history doesn't define their legacy. I'm a normal guy. I just made a decision. Instead of letting the trauma define me, I chose to use the trauma as rocket fuel to propel not only my life and empower me to heal myself and become a great husband and become a great father, friend, brother, right? But also now to help other people learn that they can heal from their trauma. And if I can make it through what I made it through, no doubt they can make it through the things that they made it through. And you're one decision away from really catapulting yourself and living this abundantly joyous and happy life.
One decision away. Now, as adults, we understand that, that one decision can happen in a moment. But as kids, when we can't really control our environment, it's not so easy to navigate those situations. And I know, in your book, you talk about, these pivotal moments where you finally were given an option to make a decision to exit your situation. I want you to share with me the moments leading up to that and what began to transpire following that event.
Yeah, I think for me, a big piece of this whole journey that I didn't realize when I was younger, that I realize now as an adult and much more spiritual, was just where God was really there for me in this journey. And I think back to being 7 and 8 years old. And at the time, my punishment by my stepfather was being thrown in the basement into the dark. And I can remember times being thrown in the morning because I was in my pajamas and being let out in the evening time to eat after being in dark all those hours. And there were so many times he'd throw this Halloween mask down there with me. And in those moments, I was on the brink of truly losing my sanity. And I think to myself now, grown, one, how does somebody do that to somebody else? I realize hurt people hurt other people. But how did I make it? And when I wrote the book, Monsters in My House, I thought, what was I feeling down there? How did I come out and not have the same thing, the same issues that I've seen my brother have, or that I've seen other family members have, or people that I know that have been through abuse? And I realize in these moments, and I think back and I talk about this in the story, sitting in there and this Halloween mask that's down there with me, it becomes alive. It's 7 and 8 years old. Half the time we're jumping over our bed to get on our bed because we think a monster is going to grab us from underneath, right?
Yeah.
But for me, I'm in the basement in the dark. This Halloween mask comes to life. I can hear its nails tapping. I can hear it telling me it's going to get me. It's going to eat me alive. And I see my stepfather standing at the top of the stairs right before he slams the door shut and locks me in this dark basement. And in this moment, it's like, I'm looking at him. I'm looking at in the basement in the dark. I'm hearing this monster down there. And that's why the book's called Monsters in My House. Because in this moment, for 16 years, I really had to choose between two monsters, the one at the top of the stairs, the one at the bottom. But more so, I had to choose between all the monsters that I lived with that would abuse me every single chance they had. And so I'll never forget sitting on the floor of this basement and peering over my knees. You got your knees tucked into your chest and got my arms wrapped around my knees and just peering over my arms because I didn't want to turn away, and really getting to the point where I couldn't take this anymore and feeling a warmth come over me. Almost like a glow, but I don't picture it getting light, almost like a glow coming over me and giving me peace in this darkness, this position I'm in where I'm literally losing my mental sanity. And I think to myself, there's other times God has shown up for me in my life in that way. 13 years old, and I'll tell a couple stories to kind of help narrate where we're at. Perfect. So I'm being abused. I'm being kidnapped from one parent to the other. I'm moving to different states, different cities, different schools, different people, being abused by all these adults. And at 13, I'm living with my father at this point. And I'll never forget this. He comes home and he's talking about with his girlfriend at the time going to Disneyland. And I'm like, dope. We're going to we don't even have food, so I don't even know how we're going to Disneyland. We're living in a 1-bedroom apartment, so small. And I'm thinking, I don't know how, but we're going to Disneyland. I'll wear the Mickey ears. I don't even care. Like, I'm so excited, right? Yeah. And we're sitting there at dinner, and I'm hearing him talk about Disneyland with his girlfriend, and we never sat at a dinner table, but he was excited to make this announcement. And she goes to leave. He's like, we're leaving on Thursday. So she goes to leave, and I say, Dad, like that's awesome. I'm not even going to miss practice on Friday because I love playing basketball back in the day, right? My knees can't allow it anymore, but I'm 45. Excuse me. And so I'm literally standing there, and I'm like excited in this moment. And he looks at me, and after a lifetime of him just abusing me and never giving me the love, he tells me, what makes you think you're going? I said, well, you were talking about it with us. I thought I was going. And he says, well, I love her and not you, so why would I take you? And I share this story in the book because it was really impactful for me. Mm-hmm. Having now at 13, being more emotionally aware of what I was feeling versus as a child, and having to now process these feelings. So this was on a Monday. We had this conversation. They leave on the Thursday. I'm at home by myself at 13 years old. And he turns before he leaves. He said, if you call anybody in the family, I'll kill you when I get back. I thought, wow, okay, I'm not going to call anybody because I was terrified. Mm-hmm. He literally, they take off. And I remember that weekend being so angry, Princeton. So angry. I went to school the next 2 days because I knew I would get in trouble if I didn't. Mm-hmm. Saturday comes and I'm in the apartment by myself. Don't really have any food. He left me a little bit of money to get basketball shoes and get something to eat, just a couple bucks, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm in this apartment by myself, and I'm getting more angry. And at this point, I hadn't seen my mom in 4 years. My dad's told me he don't love me, or he doesn't love me enough to take me to Disneyland with them. And I'm furious, and I'm getting myself lathered up, right? And I'm like, I want them to feel my anger. I want them to feel my pain. What are they going to feel like when I'm not here no more? I want them to feel I want them to feel bad. I want them to feel like they caused me to commit suicide. And I wrote a suicide note. Mm-hmm. And I'll come back to me seeing this as an adult, which is pretty crazy. It was almost like I blocked this moment out in my head until I was in my early 20s and saw this suicide note. And I'm lathered up and I'm angry enough to go to the kitchen, get a knife out. I take it into the bathroom. Still to this day, I don't know why I started the water in the sink. Mm-hmm. Started the water in the sink, put my left wrist over the sink and pushed the knife into my skin. And in that moment, I thought to myself, that's it. I'm going to do it. And I pushed the knife harder into my skin. It was like I froze. Paralysis took me over. I literally, no joke, bro. To this day, I couldn't move. And something whispers in my ear, and then my hand gets shook, and I drop the knife. I walk out into the living room, and it was like as I'm walking, I'm almost floating. And if you can picture like golden armor coming over my head, and it's like the layered armor from the nice stuff from back in the day. And it's like layering and it's golden. And it gave me a power I had never felt until that moment. But it reminded me of being 8 and almost losing my sanity and this warmth that came over me. And I would need that strength for the next 2.5 years until I testified against my father in court in a real pinnacle moment in my life. So I'm at 15.5 years old. The beatings are getting so horrible with my dad. He's going to kill me at some point. I mean, literally hitting me in the face with cast iron skillets upside the head, beating me with a belt until I'm just a lump of humanity on the floor. At this point, I'm stuttering. I flinch really bad when an adult's around me because I'm just 15.5 years of this abuse. My mentality can't take it. Mm-hmm. I'm scared of everything. And what's wild, right? So you've known me for a while, which you would never know now. That's the power of healing that we can talk about. And I'm in this, my aunt and I, now picture this. You got 8 kids. You got the oldest brother, which is my father. You got the youngest sibling, a pretty big age gap in there. The youngest sibling, which is my aunt, my life hero. You have, she's newly married with a toddler. She starts to hatch a plan to take me, this broken 16-year-old, 15-and-a-half-year-old teenager, out of my father's house. My father was a bully. Anybody else who tried, he would threaten to put him in jail. He was a bully. And so she calls CPS because I would call her from payphones back in the day, right? There was no pagers. Yeah. There was no caller from payphones. He hit me again. Like, I can't take this anymore. She would just come get me and just make stuff up. I'm going to take her son to the circus. Like, I wanted to see if Walt wants to go. And my dad would say, get him that out of here. I don't want him around. She would just pull me out of the house and go just give me a little bit of love. That kept me hanging on, right? And you talk about love a lot, Princeton. Love really changes the dynamic of everything, and it gives hope to people that don't have hope.
That's right.
And I'll never forget, she calls CPS. We hatch this plan. CPS tells her, now mind you, this is 30 years ago. He has to get hit again now that you filed a report. We can't do anything till he gets hit again.
System.
And not only that, we're going to send a caseworker out there to do a health and welfare check. And I'm thinking to myself, so she's furious. She's like, he's going to kill him. And I'm thinking to myself, if this caseworker comes out here, my dad could be a charmer. He's going to charm them, make them feel like nothing's wrong. Like I'm the one that's getting, disciplined in the house, but it's not as bad as I say. I'm making stuff. I just can see it in my head. And literally, thank God, 2 days later, he punched me in my head twice in front of my friends. And I'll never forget this. This was the first day. Now I had an outlet. I knew CPS needed me to file a case. My aunt told me, when he hits you next time, run. And in my head, later on, Forrest Gump came out. So in my head, I'm like, run, Forrest, and I'm not making light of it. But that's like what I think of now when I visualize this moment. And this girl that I like my friends and I are sitting on the porch. She told me, don't go off the staircase of the apartments. We lived on the second floor. She takes my hat. She goes running. I think she's cute. So I'm chasing her. That 15-year-old, kind of like, puppy love you got.
Yeah.
And so I'm chasing her. I catch her halfway down the street. We're walking back and I can hear him coming. And he wasn't a big dude, but he had a loud voice. And he's like, his army voice that he had from being in the army. And he says, boy, I thought I told you. And I can hear it booming down the street. And he's walking towards me. And I'm walking towards him. I don't even know why. In the middle of the street, though, we're walking towards each other. And I'm like, Dad, I was just getting my hat. And he moves because he's left-handed. He moves to the other side of me. And he goes, bullshit. Bam. And he punches me on the side of my head. Well, my hat gets sideways, right? And almost flies off. And I'm starting to cry, but I don't want to cry in front of my friends. And they're watching in horror. People are walking their dogs, walking their kids. People are seeing this. And I was like, Dad, I was really just getting my hat. He goes, bullshit. And he punches me in my head again. And the hat goes flying. This was the first time I had a choice to make. Do I run or do I stay? Now's my chance. And I didn't tell this story. At 10 years old, my sister ran away, called the cops because of what he was doing to her and us. I lied to the cops because I was terrified he would kill me. This was my another chance to get away. And I'll never forget, I leaned down. It's in Arizona. So picture it's probably 105, 110 out. Asphalt's hot. Kneeling down, grabbing my hat, almost like in a sprinter pose. And I can hear my aunt, run, 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 run. And I kind of look at him and I could just see the snarl on his face. Like he was going to literally punch me in my face as I'm leaning down on the ground. And I just ran. And I promise you, Usain Bolt couldn't have caught me that day. It was like I was on the Serengeti getting chased by a lion. You know what I'm saying? And I can hear him behind me, boy, you better get over here. 1, 2. And I don't even look. In my head, he couldn't have caught me anyway. But in my head, he was right on my heels, right? Because that fear is real in those moments. Take off running, call the cops. He gets arrested for child abuse that night. I'll pause here in a second, but I want to tell this part. I move in with my aunt that night. As he's getting in the cop car, this is how narcissistic he was. He says, I hope your friends were worth it. I can't believe you're doing this to your dad. And I'll never forget, there's this cop, he's like 6'5", this mountain of a man. He kneeled down. It's not like I'm short. I was probably 5'8" at the time, right? I'm 5'10" now. He kneels down on one knee. He's like to my eye level. And he said, son, nobody should ever have to go through this. Your dad thinks he's tough. He's a big boy, right? Don't worry, I'll take care of him. He's going to be okay. Don't you worry about that. You're never going to have to go through this again. And from that night, some court stuff we'll talk about, right? But from that night, my life started to change forever. So that was the abuse that I had until that point. So much more than I narrate in the book. Mm-hmm. But that was the night my life started to change, because that was the first time I made a decision to not be frozen by the fear, but instead allow that pain and that suffering and that shame and the despair and that pit that I lived in the darkness to propel me forward, because somebody put a glimmer of hope and shined a little light of love in there to say, maybe I won't ever have to go through this again. Mm-hmm. And so, so that was like that first pinnacle moment. One of the most important moments in my entire life was that night.
And you said so much in there. First off, I want to thank you for being vulnerable enough to share these aspects of your story. And I'm used to you being vulnerable at this point, but we're reaching over 93 countries right now. There's people all over the world that's tapping into this who are experiencing some pretty bad situations, or maybe trying to grow out of some situations. Maybe they're at that pinnacle point, and you're that light, just as, your aunt was that light for you. That was like, okay, like next time this happens, this is what you do. You're now that light for somebody. So to everybody that's listening right now to this share, we don't share this for vanity. We share this because we understand that sometimes when you're facing the most challenging moments in your life, whether that's in relationships or in business or in any type of traumatic situation that detrimentally affects you emotionally, mentally, physically, in those times, it can be, very paralyzing. And you are in a place where you have to make a choice. And so what we want to challenge you to do today is to make a choice. If you feel alone, reach out. If you feel like you have these things going on and nobody around you understands, people like myself, people like Walt, we're here. We share our stories. We add light to your life, because in the middle of the darkness, we understand that's when the light shines the brightest. Mm-hmm. And some of you divinely are listening to this podcast now, and you're like, man, I'm at that point where I'm ready for a change. I'm ready for a shift. It's time for me to run. Mm-hmm. And so, as you're thinking about that, just realize that you are the most powerful force in your life. And it may not always seem like it. It may not always seem like it. Maybe due to social standards or norms in whatever area you may be in, if you're in the US or if you're abroad, circumstances, we can't always control what happens to us, but we can always control how we choose to respond. And so when I'm listening to you, Walt, and you're talking about how you chose to respond, and that response was to run, someone had come and shine a light in your life and said, okay, these are the decisions you need to make to move the needle forward, to exit this situation. But there's going to be more challenges to come. Mm-hmm. But when this challenge comes, this is what you do. Having that in your life. Do you ever think, if that had ever happened, do you ever think you would have had the courage to run that day?
I almost did one other time before that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget. I popped the screen. My dad was drunk. He had just beat me. I popped the screen. I lived in a first floor apartment at this point, and I almost ran, but I didn't, because I knew that I would end up back with my dad without a plan. Right. So I don't know if I would have. I got a millimeter really away from taking my own life. And the thing is, and you said this too, Princeton, I think this is so important. When you're living in that despair, and by the way, the trauma could be childhood abuse. The trauma could be narcissistic abuse in your relationship. It could be a veteran, especially me having been a veteran for 2 decades. It could be a veteran that had something happen in war that they're dealing with. It could be somebody who tore their knee and thought they were going to go pro. It could be somebody who had a nervous breakdown at work like I did in corporate America and decided, I'm going to step into my purpose. There's so many different types of trauma. But what we lack most of the time is the vulnerability, because we think that we shouldn't talk about it because it makes us strong. When we think we shouldn't talk about it, we put ourselves in a position where we feel alone. Nobody's going to understand. Nobody gets it. And I think that's why it's amazing that we share our stories the way we do. For those of you guys listen, this is why we share. We share because we want people to know they're not alone. We want people to know that they can overcome. We want people to know, I want to be like Princeton. He's a lighthouse for some. Me, I'm the lighthouse for some. The two of us are a lighthouse for a lot. We're creating a movement of healing. So we want you to be the lighthouse, not only for you, but the person who doesn't need Princeton or Walt's story. The person that needs your story, the person that you're going to inspire to continue to take the steps forward to unlock the abundance in their life. And honestly, you get to a point in your healing, Princeton, I know you feel this way too. I'm genuinely thankful for what I went through. My wife and I were talking about this last night. This book doesn't happen without the trauma I went through. The healing that I'm going to help other people through, that I am helping other people through, doesn't happen without the trauma that I've been through. So thank God I've been through the trauma that I've been through so that I can help other people heal from their wounds and know that they're not alone. And know that no matter what, there is a lighthouse in the dark. And if we can create enough lighthouses in this movement of healing, one day there's no dark.
That's right.
One day there's no dark. But we got to start with ourselves, and then we can magnify that light and create other lighthouses. And that's what this mission, that's what this movement is about. That's why people like you and I share. That's why I wrote the book. And it's amazing to me, and we'll get into the book, I know, so I'm probably jumping ahead. I've had so many people respond to me with the book, telling me, you never sound like a victim in your book. And I said, I was victimized, but I'm not a victim. I'm not a survivor. I'm a warrior. I've been fighting my whole life to be where I'm at. I've been fighting for myself, been fighting for my wife, been fighting for my kids. I've been fighting for other people that have been through trauma. I'm a damn warrior. I didn't just make it. And for those of you guys listening who are listening to this, who have been through traumatic experiences, I promise you, you are not a victim. You are not a survivor. You didn't just make it. You're here fighting. You're here pushing. You're here winning. And now it's time to step fully into your power and own that warrior just vibration that you can continue to live in. That's why that book is written. That's why I want other people to write their books, because man, I'm jacked up. You got me jacked up right now. One more time.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
and so my voice is hoarse today, so thanks for hanging in there with me. And Stephanie and I were talking about this. So many of us, and I did for a long time, live in that pit of shame and despair and pain and anger, and we lash out and we hide things and we don't speak our truth because we're uncomfortable. It's time to remove the stigma of trauma. It's time to give people space to speak their truth, because I'm done with people that have been through traumatic experiences being uncomfortable speaking their truth. It's time to make the people who put you through those uncomfortable. So I promise you, if you're out there and you're traumatizing somebody, we're coming. We're coming, and you're going to be exposed for what that looks like. And so, like, you're put on notice today. On this podcast, you've got warriors that are coming from you. And those of you guys listening, you will get the space. Call me, go to my website, read the book. I host a Trauma to Triumph room on Clubhouse. There's so much free stuff. This podcast with Princeton, that it's time for you to speak your truth too. We are building an army and a movement of people healing this world. And you are part of it because you're listening to this today.
That's right. You guys hear it, man. That fire. I got chills right now, but when I hear Walt talk, it gives me it gives me this feeling, just this victorious feeling. It's like that battle cry going out, like, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. And if I'm not alone, you're not alone. And if you're not alone, we're not alone. And that's what it's all about. And I love what you said. It's time for you to stop being uncomfortable, being vulnerable, sharing your story and exposing the truth of the violators of your life. It's time for you to stop being uncomfortable and vulnerable. It's time for you to step into that level of vulnerability, because we got to expose the truth. We got to expose the truth, because as long as we keep living in a lie, we allow the lie to perpetuate itself. Whether it's in business or relationships or, emotional abuse or whatever it is. If we sit behind the lie, silence is agreement. And so we silently agree, saying it's okay, even though we're miserably living a life that we hate, accepting things that do not honor us. And we got to love ourselves enough to take that step forward, to say enough is enough. I've been hurt, but from this point on, I will be new. I will not be quiet. I will not wait for someone else to surpass me. I will not wait for another opera. I'm taking this moment now and I'm owning it. Tomorrow's not promised. And, it's so sad when you look at the statistics of, people who are impacted by different levels of trauma, and the levels of suicide and how they've gone up because somebody didn't feel like their voice mattered. Somebody didn't feel like what they were experiencing was worth enough to even talk about, because they didn't feel safe enough or secure enough, or they didn't believe that anybody would even help them. And see, when we can start talking about our own traumatic experiences on any level, with every one thing that you've experienced, there's at least 1 million people out there experiencing just one of those things that you can now be a light to. People ask me all the time, Princeton, how do I find my purpose? And I always say purpose is rooted in service. Service is rooted in love. So in order for you to step into purpose, you got to first learn to love, starting with yourself. First learn to forgive for yourself. And then ask yourself, as I am learning to love myself, how can I take this same love and how can I, impart this love into the lives of someone else through some gift or service that now allows me to move and impact, leaving a legacy of change. That's purpose. A lot of times people try to tie their purpose into money. But, there's plenty of millionaires. Look at, what's his name? Robin Williams. Made everybody laugh, made a lot of money, great actor, amazing, commit suicide. He was hurting, never talked about it.
Like Kate Spade.
She's
another one, right? A lot of Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah.
So many people hiding from their truth. I don't even know if they were chasing the things, right? But they lack the vulnerability because of society. There's so much judgment. Well, I'm okay, and I know you are too, standing in the face of the judgment to get rid of the stigma from the trauma. And imagine a world where people can take those experiences and instead of it making them look in the rearview mirror and slow down on life and hold them back via self-doubt, self-limiting beliefs, all the things that hold us back in life that have held me back at times too. Imagine instead, and this is what I ultimately ended up doing. I use my experiences and it's like rocket fuel, like jet fuel to propel me as far forward, as fast as I can go. And the cool thing about being on a jet is you could pick people up along the way. And when you start looking out that windshield, when you start focusing on where you're going, not where you've been, and you use where you've been as rocket fuel to get to where you're going faster, life, it transcends yourself. And that's where you say service and love, right? It's so important. It starts to impact people around you, the lives around you. And not only that, the lives that you ain't even touched yet.
That's right.
The lives I didn't even heard your name yet, that you will, because you started by speaking your truth. And it didn't just come out for me at one time. It took years for me to unpack all of it. It was like peeling an onion, and there are times you peel an onion, right? You start crying because the onion's got those juices that get you teary. But when it's bloomed, when it's fully open, it's a beautiful thing to discover and it's free. The freedom in speaking your truth is cathartic like nothing else you'll ever know. And I don't mean, and there's parts for this, like putting your stuff in a balloon and letting it fly away and letting it go, writing it down and putting it in a fire, it burns it. No, I'm talking about finding one person to speak your truth to out loud. You have somebody you trust in your life. You got to be willing to trust them enough and be vulnerable enough to speak your truth. You got Princeton, you got me. Like, find somebody, find us if you have to.
And we have a whole circle of people.
Yes, to speak your truth too, so that you can live in this freedom. And this, especially for men and men out there, I want you guys to hear this. Women, you guys, ladies, you guys got a superpower called vulnerability that you live in. You talk about your feelings. You talk about things bothering you. I wish we could just give that to men right away.
Yeah.
And by the way, men, when I'm talking about this piece, I'm talking from experience. The ultimate flex of strength for a man is vulnerability. When you're vulnerable, you open yourself up to hurt, right? 98% of the time, all you do is open yourself up to fruitful relationships. When you're vulnerable, men commit suicide 3.1 times more than women because men hide it in. We think it's strength. We think it's like, we don't want to look weak. So we put this capital R for resilience on our chest like Superman. And we don't really talk about the things bothering us. And it's poison to your soul. You got the antidote. It's your voice. So speak your truth. Speak your voice. Be vulnerable. Find the person to talk to. And you watch how you open up another level of who you are as a man. But not only that, you break the generational cycle of abuse, and you're fighting to be the hero for yourself and your family. That's what we need to do as men to change the culture of what we're doing. Because there's no more, I'm changing the game on this. Princeton, I know you are too. There's no more alpha male, nobody cares, work harder mentality.
Yeah.
There's no more of that. The real alpha male is vulnerable and speaks their truth.
Yeah.
The real alpha male can let go of the things that are poisoning their soul so they can be happy and love themselves and love those people around them that deserve it the most in a way that God wants us to love. That's when we know we've made a giant step in this movement. So men, if you're out there listening, speak your truth. Be strong, courageous in your vulnerability, and watch how every single aspect of your life changes, including how you feel about the success you're having and the peace that you have when you're attaining it. Boy, I'm fired up, bro.
I'm loving
Let's
it, man. I'm loving it because this is so true. But you started speaking your truth, a long time ago, after, your father's arrest. And I know, man, we could go on for hours. You guys just don't know how Walt and I roll, man. We would get together for sessions. We were working building towards this process. And, we were supposed to be there for 1 hour. Next thing you know, it's 3 hours gone by.
It is too.
But it's just so awesome, man, when you have that type of synergy with someone who does speak their truth. And, I second everything that Walt said. You can reach out to him, reach out to me. We have social media. Be social. You don't have to post on our post. If you just want to send us a DM, send us a message, let us know what challenges you have. Maybe just saying, hey, I'm struggling is the first step. We don't expect you to come out and unload everything you've ever been challenged with. Maybe just saying, you know what, I'm struggling and I just need to let somebody know.
It's that onion, right, bro? Like the one layer lets you get to the next layer. You don't just pop it open right away. It's each layers.
Yeah. Well, when you begin to share your story, and I love this story. Guys, listen, I don't want to give you guys too much. There's so many stories that he shares that's in his book, so many different revelations. And I mean, you will be in tears. It will challenge you to your core to change the way you see yourself, to change the way you see the way that you create your life, the way that you become triumphantly you, so that, as I say, you can step into your power, potential, and your purpose. You are not limited. Though your situations and your circumstances may feel limited, they're only feeling limited because you've created belief systems around those experiences. But I always say, if you're not in chains, if you're not bound down, which unfortunately some people in this world are, but if you're listening to this podcast and you're allowed to listen to this podcast right now and you're able to come and go at will, you have choices. You have choice. I always say every day you wake up with a chance and a choice. And so I want to challenge you guys over and over again, take the chance on this book. I highly recommend this book if you are struggling with any level of trauma. if you are ready to say, you know what, I don't know what to do. Maybe I'm not at a point where I'm ready to talk to Walt about this. Get the book. Get the book and read. And maybe after reading the book, something's going to speak to you. I know something's going to speak to you, but maybe after reading the book, you'll be able to find some words that you can reach out and share with Walt, share with myself, share with, us on our platforms. But we have pages, we have groups on social media, on Facebook. We also host Clubhouse rooms if you guys are on Clubhouse. So you have options. You don't have to be alone in this space. And so, I want Walt, because I know Walt will give you all these different stories. But I want to fast forward a little bit, because you ended up going to court. You had to testify against your father. That was the day, as you say it in your book, that was the day that you just felt liberated. Finally, you felt free, like you could breathe for the first time. And all of a sudden things began to change, And so what happened following that? If you could give us kind of a bird's eye view of how your life has transformed since that moment.
Yeah. So healing's not linear, guys. It wasn't like I moved in with my aunt, testified against my father, and snap your fingers, I'm healed. It took a long time to get there, but I took steps every day. So moved in with my aunt for the next 3.5 years. She really showed me what healthy love was. I remember she'd be like, now she was only 9 years older. So I'm 15, she's 24, newly married with a kid. Remember that. She's figuring out her life.
Yeah.
So she didn't even know what she was doing, but I remember she'd pinch me and punch on me like in a fun way. Right. And she just watched me play basketball. She just was my biggest champion. And that kind of just was the fuel that I need to start the real journey forward. I'll never forget, I went to a psychologist that was mandated by the court. Mm-hmm. And I'm in there talking to him. And by the way, psychologists, therapists, like coaches, all of it matters. All of it's relevant. Find what works best for you. For me, that didn't work. He said, you're putting up walls and it's bricks and you got to put one down at a time. And I thought, all right, I'm mentally, I'm checked out already. I'm not feeling this. What my aunt allowed me to do, that's why I'm so passionate about speaking your truth. She just let me tell the pieces of my story when I was ready. Mm-hmm. She was there. She listened. She just loved on me. So I get to the point of being 19. I'm out on my own at this point. I'm still angry. Mm-hmm. The love gave me a chance, but I still had to resolve the anger inside. We get literally my buddy and I cased a Circle K, which is a convenience store. Then when an old guy was working, ski mask, guns, about to rob the store on a Wednesday at 2 to 3 a.m. That was our goal time because we knew that there was nobody coming in. Mm-hmm. His mom gets sick. I won't give away too many of the stories, but his mom gets sick randomly the Monday before we're going to rob the Circle K, deathly ill. Now, mind you, this amazing woman's still alive today.
Wow.
Right? So 27 years later, still alive today. He takes off home. I have some time to think to myself about what I'm going to do. I didn't invite girls over. I wasn't drinking. I just had quiet time. Mm-hmm. And after a day or two in the apartment, I thought, what the hell am I doing? Mm-hmm. It's like the devil and angel on each shoulder, right? I'm going to go to jail or prison or be dead if I continue this path. And I'm thinking to myself, because I want to be a good person, just struggling. I was literally about to rob this store at gunpoint. Who knows what would have happened after that? Within 2 weeks of that, I had a conversation with my grandma. 2 days later, was in the Navy 2 weeks after. I write this in the book. I remember flying to go in the Navy. Again, choices, guys, right? You don't have the choice in the moment all the time. A lot of times we do, but we definitely have the choices. I didn't know what the choices were going to get me. I just was doing my best to take messy action and move forward. Excuse me. So flying on the plane to go to the Navy from Arizona to Great Lakes, Illinois. Mm-hmm. I remember sitting there on the plane and looking at everybody and thinking, nobody knows me on this plane. They don't know what I've been through. They don't know what my struggle is. I don't have to see these different places we lived in where I was abused anymore to have that constant reminder, like being in my hometown. And I said, this is my chance. This is my chance to create the life that I just dreamed of. This is my chance to do something different, to take what I've been through and have it propel me forward. And initially it was anger because I'm not going to let them hold my life back. I'm not going to let them do that shit to me. Like, I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it was really driven out of anger that started my journey. Ultimately, it turned to love.
Yeah.
That really propelled me forward. So I go in the Navy, meet some amazing mentors. And I want to say this, I had to accept them as mentors first.
Good point.
They wanted to invest in me. They were championing me, men for the first time, because women kind of made me the man I was at that point, right? Because my aunt loved on me and she gave me a chance. If you met my aunt, you would be like, that's your woman version of you. And you met my aunt, right? And so these male mentors in my early career in the Navy that really saw something in me I maybe didn't even see in myself at that point, that I thought was somewhere. I knew I had it, but I wasn't sure. So those self-limiting beliefs were really kicked in and self-doubt at that point. And I had to accept their mentorship and guidance. So I did. Had a great enlisted career, spent 10 years, was junior sailor of the year, was sailor of the year for the Navy. So 2 different times, got an officer program, became a naval officer, did really cool stuff. We could probably do a whole nother episode on in the Navy, being an intelligence officer, managed really large centers, took that leadership that I figured out and built it into my own style. Met my wife while I was in the Navy. We've been married 22 years, been together literally 25 years last month. So quarter of a century, have 2 phenomenal teenage daughters, retired from the Navy, was in corporate America for 5 years, promoted really quickly because I took all the experience in the Navy and took them into corporate America. So I like to say boots and boardroom experience because I was an executive in a Fortune 3, did really well in corporate America. And I was left at a point 10 months ago. And this is a really important part of your story because I want people to hear about the difference between living in your purpose, like aligned with spiritually what you're supposed to do, or living in what you think your purpose is.
Talk about that for a little bit.
I think I'm living in my purpose, right? I'm leading large teams. I have sites in the Philippines, sites in Tempe, Arizona, crushing it, promos, making great money, impacting like the future generations of leaders from the managers and directors that have worked for me at both these different companies I was in. And I got to a point about a year, 18 months into COVID. I was working 12 to 14 hours a day. There's literally 3 people doing the job I was doing by myself for almost 18 months now, senior level executives doing that job. I had a nervous breakdown. This is the quiet desperation we live in. So I know how to heal myself. I did it for my trauma. But because my trauma triggers me to work extraordinarily hard and grind and not take breaks, because I want to get as far ahead in my life as possible. So that's a pro. That's a gift I received from my trauma, a superpower. On the flip side of that superpower is not taking a break. And so I wouldn't take a break because I have this insatiable desire to get as far away from my childhood as possible and create an alternative legacy. But I didn't enjoy the journey. So I get to this point, I have a nervous breakdown. I feel like I'm having a heart attack. Sitting in my chair in my office, and I feel like I'm having a heart attack. Close my laptop, tell my wife, we go to the ER. It's an anxiety attack. It's a panic attack for the first time in my life. 20 years in the military, super high level stress stuff. I never had one. I had a decision to make. Thank God I have this amazing human being called my wife.
Yeah.
That God gifted to me 25 years ago when I was at a crossroads. She said, if you die, so here I am thinking I'm being tough. I'm not sharing how I feel. Man, I'm talking to you again. I'm not sharing how I feel. I'm owe it to my teams to be my best, my family, my kids, my wife, everybody around me. And I'm not doing anything to fill my own bucket. I don't fish no more. I'm horrible at golf, but it's still fun. I don't play golf no more. I wasn't even off-roading. We've been in the Jeep, right? I wasn't even off-roading in the Jeep doing that. But I thought that I was doing what I was supposed to, and I was showing up the way that I was supposed to for everybody around me. And I was showing up half of the man that they needed from me. My wife says, you've been wanting to write, I've been begging you to write your book for a decade. You've been wanting to be a speaker for over 20 years. If you die of a heart attack, all these things we have don't matter no more. I'm going to sell everything and I'm going to move back close to my parents' house. And I'm going to be miserable because my husband thought that he needed to work so hard and you're not opening yourself up to me. What's wrong with you? And I said, I'm not tired in my emotionally or physically anymore, babe. I'm tired in the depths of my soul of who I am as a human being from just fighting my whole life. Some of you guys out there know exactly what I'm talking about. And I just really opened up to her about how I was feeling. Knowing vulnerability is the strength, right? I still struggle to do it. I'm not perfect. It's hard. You got to mentally check yourself and put your emotions where they're supposed to be at. And I left corporate America, left all my income. I got 2 teenage daughters, one getting ready for college. I left everything that I knew that society told me I was supposed to do. And I aligned myself with God's purpose for my life. And that was using my history to show other people their history doesn't define their legacy, like I was able to say my history doesn't define my legacy. And now I've written this book, #1 bestseller, 10 months, wrote the book, edited it. Amazing people came into my life, met you, coaching with you, met so many other amazing souls that God has put in my life. And that's how I know I'm spiritually aligned with my purpose. The best part is I'm building my business now doing this. Been coaching people for 25 years. Now I just call myself a trainer, right? Speaker. I've been doing it my whole life. Yeah. Now I'm just coined that. #1 best-selling author. I'm more happy now than I've ever been in my whole life. Better yet, not only am I happy, my wife, my kids, my family, my friends, everybody around me sees the change and sees me maximizing how I make them feel, maximizing the capability of how I'm making people feel around me that haven't even met me yet, that have read the book, because I allowed myself to be vulnerable and then follow what my purpose was telling me I needed to do. God said, I have closed the doors, son, and you ain't listening to me. You keep trying to kick the same ones down. So I'm going to take away your ability to think. 2 months later, I got up, went the same direction. He said, no, son. He put his arm around me. He said, we going the other way. Now you're going to do what I'm telling you need to do, which is write this book, which is share space with amazing humans like you, which is help create a movement to heal the world and give people space to speak their truth like never before and remove this stigma of trauma so that we make our world a better place to live, not only for ourselves, but for our children's children that ain't even born yet.
That's right.
It's time.
Legacy. Mic drop. This is what we do, guys. And, when speaking of legacy, when we think about that, this isn't a when we die thing. It's a as long as we live thing. Every day we wake up, it's I'm leaving a legacy today. Tomorrow's not promised. We write books, we do these podcasts, we go and we speak at events, we help, the people that are close to us or the people that reach out, because every day that's our legacy. We truly care. And I looking at the industry, we talk about, not really wanting to use the phrase coach, because it's one of those words that everybody uses nowadays. You have people out here professing to be pioneers in an industry to help people, but it's all about money. And yeah, it's a business, but I think so many times it's like, it's no longer about legacy anymore. It's about how much can I get right now? Even though if you were to die tomorrow, you can't take any of it with you. We know that, and it's like I always say, just give me enough to enjoy my family. Give me enough to travel the world and impact more people, go places that I've never been before, because I know wherever I go, I'm taking this legacy with me. Wherever I go, I'm impacting lives. Wherever I go, I'm leaving this feeling that people will never forget. And as I listen to you, Walt, what I love about the legacy of you is that, if you had died in the corporate space, like your wife said, and then, she left, sold everything, went back home, she would have remembered you. Your daughters would have remembered you, but you would have been nothing more than a fading memory over time.
Yep.
But with the authoring of this new book, Monsters in My House, and all the transitions that have taken, the growth that's transpired, you've now become a memory that will never be forgotten.
Let me tell you 2 things that have happened recently that I didn't expect.
Go ahead.
One, you saw my daughter speak at the book launch event that we did.
Man,
I'm about to get choked up talking about it because I was so proud as her father. These 2 teenage women, young women, Both of them mentioned that I was miserable in corporate America, and they mentioned that I stepped out to follow my passion and my dream of helping heal the world. Think about the legacy for how they're going to live the rest of their lives because of the example I set as their father.
Yeah.
Because so often we're chasing things. The things are empty. And the people that are charlatans, right? They're acting like they're somebody and they're not. And they're talking about legacy and they sound awesome, but they're chasing money. The warped thing is they think they're creating a legacy.
Yeah.
But legacy is driven through service and impact. One of the things I didn't even know was going to happen from this, my mother, I didn't see her for 10 years at one point in my life. She allowed the abuse to happen. She was there, but she was a broken woman from the things that happened to her coming up, the horrible things that happened to her. She didn't even love herself, so she couldn't turn around and love her kids the way that she wanted to. She always wanted to love more. She didn't have the capacity because she didn't heal, right? So half of her bucket of love was filled with trauma. When you pull that trauma out, you replace it with love. This is what's really cool. Something I never considered as part of this journey. My mother, about 3 months ago, asked me, she goes, "How are you really happy? I just got to know." So we sat and really talked about it. I said, "Mom, I'll help you." Now, I got to have grace and forgiveness for my mother. But I understand hurt people hurt other people. And although she never hit me, there was a lot of neglect.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of times I didn't even see her. A lot of times she didn't show up as a mom I needed. I had to have grace, but what I saw in her is her starting to have grace and forgive herself. So those of you guys who are out there that are struggling with forgiving yourself, you have to do that too. This is about you. The forgiveness for my mom, the forgiveness for my abusers that I had was never, Princeton, never about them. It was so that I wasn't carrying the baggage and the pain.
Yeah.
My mother's forgiveness for herself isn't about her kids. It's about for her. So she can heal. The forgiveness she's learning for her abusers so she can heal. And it's just so cool. And man, it just chokes me up. She's been sober almost 60 days. I've never seen that woman not do drugs or drink in my life. And she goes, "I can't do the healing work if I'm drunk." So she went to the doctor and she got medication. Decisions. Got medication to say, "What do you have to stop me from drinking? I can't do it on my own." The doctor said, "I'm going to give you some stuff, but it's going to make you deathly ill if you drink." That's all she needed. The decision, the reach out, speaking her truth to ask for help. And now she's 60 days sober. It's just magical. And my relationship with my mother is growing because she made the decision to finally run into her trauma, to turn around. Because guys, trauma don't get tired. It will chase you your whole life. It never gets tired. You can't hide from it. You can't run from it. It will find you. It will chase you until you're exhausted. At some point, you make a decision. This is this warrior mentality I talk about. You make a decision and you turn your ass around and you run that trauma over, you truck it, run it straight over, and it will never get up and chase you again. And you can live looking out the windshield of your life. And I talk about this in the book at the end, my keys to living an extraordinary life. And you can live this extraordinary life, whatever version of that is for you. Princeton, you're living it for you. I'm living it for me. We're being examples to live it for other. It's changing my family. It's changing people I haven't even met, people that worked for me 12 years ago. And your story needs to be told if you're listening to this today so that you can live in your extraordinary life. But more importantly, so that you can become the manifest for somebody else's life that gets that cycle to continue so they can be the lighthouse for the person that's going to need them down the road. It's time. Stop running from it, turn around, run it over, and then just enjoy this extraordinary life you got in front of you. Let's go.
Let's go. Man, listen, I know you guys hear us and you may be in a space right now where, maybe this is the first time you're actually thinking about the possibility of healing through your trauma. And you hear this. And I know, if I'd come to me at a time before my life changed, if I had tried to come to me at that point and have a conversation similar to this, it probably would have been really hard for me to receive it. But at the same time, I would have been so grateful for it, and so I know a lot of you are sitting there right now, and maybe you've been doing really great in your business. You've been doing great in your relationships, but emotionally, mentally, you've been carrying things from the time you were a child that you never gave yourself space and grace to heal through. And it's affecting how you show up in your relationships. It's affecting how you show up in your business. It's affecting how you show up for you. And so, again, there is so many different levels to trauma. We just want you to know that you're always one decision away from pivoting your life, from changing your life, from impacting your life. And in doing so, impacting the lives of the people around you. And, I'm an example of that. Walt is an example of that. We have so many amazing friends who are also examples of that. And if that's something you're looking for, I just encourage you. I urge you, grab a copy of this book, Monsters in My House. Again, the links will be in the bio. Connect to Walt on social media. There's so much content. Guys, he posts content all the time, just for you to just take it in. Because sometimes you can only take it in bite-sized pieces. You can't take in the chunks, or maybe you got to start, with some soft food before you can take the depth of the meat. And that's what I love about his book, too, is that he takes you on a journey and he slow feeds you to this point where you start feeling that it's possible, because it starts to nurture your insides. It starts to nurture your mental state, your emotional state. You start to see possibility. And so, again, I cannot rave about this book enough. But again, you don't have to do it on your own. I know so many times when we're growing through trauma, we feel like we have to do it on our own. But the truth is, the human species was never created to do anything on its own. We are designed for connection, but yet we are the most disconnected species on this planet. And this is why we try to bring people back to love and understanding what love is. And, Walt and I, we're excited, man, because I'd been watching this guy before we connected, and I just fell in love with him, in love with his spirit and his passion and his fire and the courage that he had. And I said, man, I want to work with that guy. In the beginning of our time together, we talked about being on stages together. We talked about, now, boom, we got a huge event that's coming up in Denver. It's the Embrace Your Ambition event, hosted by my wonderful brother, Marcus Black, and Ashley Faye of Ashley Faye Inspires. Look up EY Ambition on Instagram. You can also go to eyambition.com/Denver. Check out the information. Matter of fact, I'm going to be having Marcus. I'm going to be interviewing him this week. So it's going to be exciting to have another amazing follow-up to another great conversation. Guys, I'm going to be bringing some amazing people like Walt and many others in our circle to you guys with some amazing stories, because you have to understand how valuable you are. You have to understand just how worthy you are to live the best life possible. You deserve it. And I don't care if nobody else ever tells you that. Hear it today. If you got to hit the little 10-second rewind and let it play again, you deserve it. You are worthy. I don't care who's ever said what or did what to you. You have a choice to choose what the rest of your life will be like, what it will look like through the choices and the decisions that you make, just like we did. But Walt, do you have any closing remarks that you would like to share? Maybe give one tip, to those in podcast land, if they're dealing with trauma right now. What would be one tip, a starting tip that you would give them for moving forward from this point?
Yeah, for me, it all comes down to speaking your truth. And you guys have heard me talk about that a few times. So in my Keys to Living an Extraordinary Life, that's the first thing that I talk about. Because let me tell you what, those deep, dark secrets we keep locked away, that we go hide the key for nobody to ever find, not even ourselves, are the things that are poisoning your soul. It's the things that, as you struggle to make you not have success, that make you struggle when you do have success, that hurt your relationships, that make you feel empty when you're all by yourself. The power that you gain, the healing that you gain, when you take that key, you unlock that box, you let all of that trauma out that you've been hanging on to, that's been poisoning your soul, by saying it out loud. Because when you say it out loud, it's not a secret.
That's right.
It's not, you don't have the shame. And instead you fill that box with love. You fill that box with power. I love it. Your power, potential, purpose, as you say, right? Mm-hmm. And you step into this next level of your life that you deserve. And to your point, you said it, you deserve it. Mm-hmm. Everybody out there, they called me mentally handicapped in court documents that I found when I started writing my book when I was 3 years old. I went through torturous abuse. I used to stutter at 15 and flinch because I was so scared. I am a living testament to that your history doesn't define your legacy. I promise you out there, where you start doesn't have to be where you finish. You have everything you need right now listening to this podcast to jumpstart your healing journey, and start by speaking your truth. Therapy, coaches, counselors, friends, parents, siblings. I don't care if you got to reach out to Princeton and me. We will give you space to speak your truth because we know the power that you gain once you do. Do not let this opportunity pass you by and stay in comfortable pain. It's time to get uncomfortable. It's time to stop running from that trauma. It's time to turn around, look it in its face, run it over so that you can live the rest of your life happy and abundant and have all the things that you've always wanted, and more importantly, that you deserve. It's time. Stop playing around and start doing the work. It will change everything for you, and it's going to change everything for somebody else one day too. So thank you. And I always say, be blessed so you can be a blessing. And Princeton, you're blessed. And thank you for giving me your blessing of having me on this podcast today. I love you, brother. I love your mission. I love what you do. That's why I had you coach me. That's why we've been working together for so long. And this is only the beginning of this movement. Who's ready to join this movement with us? Stop playing around. Speak your truth. Let's go.
I'm ready. I feel some TD Jakes coming on. Get ready, get ready, get ready.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah, man. Well, listen, how can they reach out to you on social media? What are your links? And guys, if you miss it right now, if you're driving, don't worry. It's going to be in the description of this episode. But Walt, for those who may be sitting right now and they want to look you up right now, how can they find you?
Yeah. So the easiest way is www.waltmckinley.com. You can find everything from the book to my social media sites on there. I'm on all the different social media sites. Yes, even on TikTok, which I'm really not good at using. My teenage daughters are training me on how to utilize it. So it's been a fun journey. Or if you specifically want to look at stuff for the book, I've got a landing page for the book. Go to www.monsters with an S inmyhouse.com. You can go literally download a book teaser, see the prologue story, read it. It'll inspire you to go get the book. Once you read the book, your life will change. I'm telling you, your life will change and you will catapult your healing journey along the way. So check out the monstersinmyhouse.com. Check out waltmckinley.com. You'll find me. I'll be there waiting with open arms to give you a huge hug and show you it's time to change. And you're about to change your own legacy by running over that trauma you've been running from your whole life.
Let's go. All right, guys. Listen, thank you guys today. Walter, thank you for joining me on today's podcast and just bringing your fire, your passion, your healing, and your triumph and your story to so many different people. You know, your book is selling like firecrackers and wildfire right now. Yeah. It's going off, man. And, you know, I'm just so excited for you. But guys, definitely check out the book if you haven't gotten it yet. Grab an ebook copy, share it with somebody else, you know, help us to heal or help us to help other people heal from their trauma, because this isn't a one person thing. Even though the decision is yours, we do this together. You know, and we never want anybody to feel like they're left out if they're truly ready to make the decision to move forward. So thank you guys for listening to today's episode of Mastery 360 on the Evolve Mastery podcast. Stay tuned for some updates and some things to come. Also, I'll be sharing the EYambition.com link below for the Denver event that Walt and I, along with some very amazing other people, will be on stage with. So stay tuned for that. I'll give you guys more information. But until next time, go out, step into your power, potential, and purpose, and know that you're worth it, you deserve it, and nothing's stopping you but you. Let's go. All right, guys. So, like I said, that was an amazing interview. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I want to make a couple of announcements. My brother, Walt McKinley, and I will be on stage at the Embrace Your Ambition event coming up in June. And right now, you can get your tickets at eyambition.com/Denver. I'd love to see you there. Meet some of you face to face, connect with you, love on you. And I'm just really excited about this event. But also, don't forget, I just published my new book, Warrior of Love, Speaker of Truth. And it's a decade anthology from 2011 all the way up until current. There's 8 to 10 writings per year, thoughts, meditations, and revelations. And I share this book with you guys because it's not meant to be read like most books. It's one of those books that you can literally pick up and open up to any page and it will speak to some aspect of your life. Are you ready to tap into the warrior of love in you and the speaker of truth in you that's going to move you into your power, potential, and purpose? Then go ahead, get on Amazon, get on Barnes & Noble, and get your copy today. The ebook is right now on sale for 99 cents. It will be going up, and the paperback book along with journal is included when you purchase the paperback book. And I want you guys to just have something in your hands that will really speak to where you are, speak to every aspect of your life, and help you to tap into a deeper level of your own spirit so that you can grow and evolve and become the most magnificent version of yourself, the most efficient version of yourself. So go on over, check it out. And if you'd like to get connected, maybe you want to be interviewed on the podcast, go over to evolvedmastery.com. And if you'd like to submit a submission to potentially be interviewed as one of my guests, go to PrincetonClark.com and go on over to Be My Guest on the links and get connected. And I look forward to hearing from you guys soon. And guys, listen, so much more is on the way. So much more is on the way. And I got more guests, more inspired individuals who have stepped into their own self-mastery, and they have goals and they have dreams and they're impacting the world. And I want you guys to be a part of the journey. So let's go ahead, get tapped in. I love you guys. Remember, you can follow me on Instagram at Princeton Clark, and we're rebooting, revamping the Evolved Mastery Instagram. You can also follow that at Evolved Mastery. And let's get connected. Share with me, what are some topics you would like to master? What are some things that you're struggling with that I may be able to add some value to your life? Because you help me do what I love to do. And without you, I wouldn't be doing what I am capable of doing. So I love you guys. Have an amazing day, night, afternoon, morning, whatever time it is that you're listening to this podcast. And know that in you, there is power. There is potential and there is purpose. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you soon.